All right, hello there. Welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, today I'm super excited to share my thoughts on a recent release from Arrow Video. This is probably, I would say, well, not probably, I think this is the most highly anticipated set of releases from Arrow Video this year. It's the Dollars Trilogy from Italian director Sergio Leone that were shot in the 1960s, all starring Clint Eastwood. Now, I had a chance to watch and enjoy A Fistful of Dollars out on 4K Ultra HD in this nice, beautiful, chunky box. Absolutely love this film, all-time classic. I also enjoyed For a Few Dollars More on 4K Ultra HD from Arrow Video, the second film in this famous Dollars trilogy. But today's video review is on the Arrow 4K Ultra HD limited edition release of the third film in this all-time classic trilogy, and that is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This film, of course, stars Clint Eastwood along with Lee Van Cleef, returning to the series after the second film in a different character, as well as Eli Wallach. And the three of them play three fascinating characters in this film set during the Civil War, shot in Spain, an Italian film shot in Spain about the American West during the 1860s. How about that? But what an amazing film. I want to talk about what I think about this movie. I'll talk about this Arrow Video edition in terms of the supplements, how this picture looks on 4K Ultra HD with Dolby Vision. How does it look? The audio, and overall, as a total package, this is a chunky box set. And as you can see here, you've got these special features on the back. And in looking at this title, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, is this a title that is worth picking up? We'll talk about that and my overall feelings on this release on the other side of this. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. All right, so we're talking about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Sergio Leone film from 1966, starring Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and Lee Van Cleef. This is an amazing film from 1966, and it is the third film in what is known as the Dollars Trilogy. Now, I will very quickly note that this series that we call the Dollars Trilogy was not originally intended to be a trilogy in the mind of Sergio Leone. When he first shot these films, when he did A Fistful of Dollars, he wasn't thinking about a trilogy of films. He was shooting a Western that starred Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood was actually the second or third person that he wanted to play the role, but he landed on Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood decided to do A Fistful of Dollars, to do something different. He had gotten a little tired of some of the TV Westerns that he was doing in the United States. He decided to take this opportunity to do this film overseas. And he said, it's not a big risk. If it flops over there, I don't have to worry about it. No one's ever going to see it. Of course, little did he know that this film, A Fistful of Dollars, would continue to grow in acclaim and reverence over the years and is now considered one of the all-time great Westerns. Then Sergio Leone followed up with For a Few Dollars More, also starring Clint Eastwood, and then The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And so when it came time to market these films in the United States, they said, let's market these films as a trilogy of films. And they were able to do it because had the same director, Sergio Leone. These were all spaghetti Western style films, and they all starred Clint Eastwood essentially as the same character. So there was that common through line through the films, even though they technically were not connected story-wise, they were all thematically consistent for the most part. So that's why they're called the Dollars Trilogy. Plus they came in, 1964, 65, 66. They look very much the same. They're of the same space thematically. So it kind of works. And these films do go together very well, even if they weren't originally intended as such. But yeah, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just such a fantastic Western. It's set during the Civil War, during a time where you have the North fighting the South, and you have these three gunslingers. Clint Eastwood, who is the good, You have Eli Wallach, who is the ugly, and you have Lee Van Cleef playing the bad character. And they're three gunslingers who are searching for the same thing. They're searching for this cache of gold that is hidden in a cemetery in the grave of either a Confederate or Union soldier, and each of them has some of the information, but not all the information of exactly where the treasure is hidden. So it's basically about these three gunslingers trying to duke it out between each other as to who's going to get this cache of gold. All set in the West, all set in the backdrop of the American Civil War, and it is by far the biggest film scale and scope wise of this trilogy. But I have some slides here that I'm going to go through, and we're going to start right now with slide number 1. So this is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly Arrow Video 4K review. So you see here the original theatrical poster. For three men, the Civil War wasn't hell, it was practice. And I love this art. You have Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Lee Van Cleef, Eli Wallach. Of course, Lee Van Cleef played the man in black in the previous film For a Few Dollars More. He played a totally different character. He comes back for this film. He played actually a good character in the second film, For a Few Dollars More, and he is playing an insidiously awful character in the final chapter, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's why he's called The Bad. And then, of course, this beautiful new artwork from Arrow Video as part of this release that you see right there. Moving on to Sergio Leone, the director, and the legacy of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This film was released in 1966. It's the third Leone Western with Eastwood, and they never worked together again after these films. It's pretty well known for those who have studied these films that Sergio Leone was very exacting in getting a lot of different angles for his shots. You see that precision in the final product very well. What wasn't very well was for the actors having to do all that work and go through that whole process, and Clint Eastwood grew a bit tired with it. And once they ended production on these films, I don't believe they ever worked together again. I think they may have come together for one final dinner before Leone passed away, and probably, hopefully, made full amends, but apparently they parted on not the best of terms, but they made some amazing films with this series of movies here. But yeah, this one was released in 1966. The mythic scope of this film, Eastwood, Van Cleef, Wallach as an iconic triangle. Just what a great cast here. You see the three of them up there in the top left. You see Sergio Leone in the top right. Down there on the bottom left, you'll see Sergio Leone, the director, with the composer of this film, Ennio Morricone. He was an Italian composer, Italian musician, and he is just as important to this film as Sergio Leone himself, as Clint Eastwood himself, as any of the characters, because the music of this film, more than most films that I can speak of, plays an amazing part in this film. The music plays such a huge role in this film. It is a character unto itself. So much so that if you were to take the music out of this film, you don't have the same movie. You do not have a movie that is anywhere near as interesting. Morricone's music makes this film as much as anything else. And so you see him there with Sergio Leone. And then, of course, you see the three films here, Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, and, of course, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You have The Good, Clint Eastwood, The Bad, Van Cleef, and The Ugly, Wallach. These three characters I thought were just very compelling. I mean, this film is largely comedic. I shouldn't say largely comedic, but it has some really fun comedic moments in it. So there's some lightheartedness to it, but there's also that hardcore action piece of it. And then there's the tense moments, those close-ups and people reaching for a gun or waiting in anticipation and trying to figure out the next person's move. I mean, Sergio Leone, just a master at staging these scenes and also working with his editor to set up the pacing of this film just right. Pacing it to the action and pacing it to the music It's just a beautiful dance between Leone, Morricone, and the editor in making this film an all-time masterpiece, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But yeah, I really enjoyed these characters, and overall, I just really enjoyed this film. This is a fascinating film that has a wonderful setting. I love the characters. I love each version of Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name in each of these films because you get a slightly different version of that same character. Technically, they're all a little bit different in each of these films, but there's essentially the same motif of this mysterious man with no name that has no background. You don't know what his backstory is. You have no idea where he came from. And that's part of the mystery and the mystique of Clint Eastwood's character in these films that works so well. You just know that he is here in the present and he is a master gunslinger, and you don't dare go up against him or you're going to end up 6 feet under, basically. And that's what I love about his character. And of course, he's going up against Lee Van Cleef in this film, The Bad. He is absolutely insidious. He is vicious, as you see in the opening few minutes of this film, as these characters are each introduced in little vignettes, one by one, actually, wait, who did it start with? It started with the Ugly was introduced with Eli Wallach's character. Then you got introduced to Lee Van Cleef's bad character. And then you got introduced to Clint Eastwood's the good character. And you see how the characters are interconnected as they are now off on this quest to find this hidden gold. So fantastic characters. Let's talk a little bit about the budget of this film. Now, the budget, not just of this film, but how the budget compares to the other films in this series. So when Sergio Leone first did A Fistful of Dollars, that was the first film that he did with Clint Eastwood, and he shot it overseas. Oh, well, not overseas for him, overseas from my perspective here in the United States. I believe it was shot in Italy, I believe. The Fistful of Dollars, I'll have to double check. But it had a budget of $200,000. So pretty modest budget at the time. No one knew how successful that film would be. It turned out to be quite a success, which then led him to make a sequel or another Western called For a Few Dollars More. Not a sequel, but another Western starring Clint Eastwood called For a Few Dollars More. Triple budget at $600,000. That success plus A Fistful of Dollars led to the budget for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where he got his biggest budget yet of $1.2 million, more than the first two movies combined. And that allowed Sergio Leone to open up the scale and scope of this film, to really put more into this film. And you see that money being put to good use in terms of realizing a little bit of a sliver of the Civil War as a part of this film, the backdrop of this film, and just getting a bigger scale and scope. You see it in the cinematography, you see it in the production values raising as you progress through these films, and it all culminates with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I just think that they did a good job putting good use of that money into the making of this film. Of course, in this film, you'll see sweeping landscapes and intimate close-ups. Of course, that's part of the beauty of the photography that went into this movie and just capturing those beautiful landscapes in Spain. They shot this film in different parts of Spain based upon the terrain that they were going for, whether it's northern Spain, central Spain, or southern Spain. They were able to get the aesthetic that they were looking for in each of those areas. And you got beautiful sweeping landscapes of the mountains and the terrain and the towns that they were in. But then you also got those intimate close-ups, whether it was part of the close-ups during a gunfight or a duel, or just close-ups in general, where you got to get into the face of people and really wonder what they're thinking. And then those medium shots where you'll see them in the action of a scene. Just great cinematography all the way around and use of the cameras. And I think the editor did an amazing job coordinating with the director. But this film was beautifully shot. I think that's a great way to sum it. It's just a beautiful looking film. Speaking of beautiful looking, along with that look comes the sound of this film. And this is the sound of Leone. which, of course, you cannot speak of these films without giving proper recognition to the incredible contribution of composer Ennio Morricone and the wonderful voice of Etta Del Orso. Their contribution to the sound of this film is just absolutely spectacular. It's one of those things that reminds me of so much of what we hear today is a callback to things that were in the past. It was inspired by something from the past. So we're about to go into football season, college football, pro football, and one of the beverages that is advertised is from a company called Modelo. And you'll hear that music playing. That music came from this 1966 film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, composed by Ennio Morricone and sung by Etta Del Orso. That haunting music just sets the tone of and the atmosphere of this movie, and it has such an incredibly ethereal quality. And I'm doing a horrible job of describing it other than to say it just captivates you and pulls you into that place. It is beautiful music. It is beautifully paced to the action. The editing, the direction, the pacing, the cinematography all comes together to make a beautiful symphony with the sounds and the visuals. It is an absolutely stunning film to watch, just seeing all those elements come together perfectly on screen. But yeah, this music from Ennio Morricone, chef's kiss, the wonderful voice of Etta Del Orso. There's not very many people that can match her vocal range and what she put out there. Working with Ennio Morricone on this soundtrack, and the work speaks for itself. Amazing stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit about a little bit of the history of this film as it relates to, of course, this is The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. It's the third film in this now considered Dollar Trilogy series, but it started with this film here, A Fistful of Dollars from Sergio Leone from 1964, also starring Clint Eastwood. And this film was a recreation of a Japanese film that is in the Criterion Collection. It's a film from Akira Kurosawa, and it is this film here. It's part of this set, Yojimbo and Sanjuro. I had the Blu-ray set. I have not upgraded this to 4K. Don't think I will, but this is Yojimbo. So this film here from 1961 is a film from Akira Kurosawa, and it has the same plot as the 1964 film A Fistful of Dollars. So basically, Sergio Leone did a remake, an unofficial or unauthorized, if you would, remake of Yojimbo, and it ended up creating a bit of a legal issue with Toho and Akira Kurosawa, and it ended up being settled, and basically Akira Kurosawa got a cut of the box office for the film and ended up making, I think, more money from that than from Yojimbo itself. So they had to go to a little bit of a legal agreement there, but it was a remake of Yojimbo. So it's one of those things where everything is inspired by something else. Of course, there has been some criticism for Sergio Leone because of that, but in reality, Akira Kurosawa said that he liked the film Fistful of Dollars, but hey, I like the movie, but that's my story you're stealing there. So give me a piece of that. But of course, Akira Kurosawa was also influenced in part by folks like John Ford and people that came before him. So everybody gets influences from somewhere. But in cases where you're coming a little bit too close to replicating someone else's work, you're going to have to kind of make amends for that. So they did that for A Fistful of Dollars. But Sergio Leone did put his own spin on that work. So that's something interesting about that particular film and the beginning of this Dollars Trilogy. Now let's talk a little bit about how this film here, not Fistful of Dollars, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, how does it look on 4K Ultra HD? And the only thing I'll say is it looks wonderful on 4K Ultra HD. It looks fantastic. I mean, this is a new 4K restoration of the 162-minute international cut and the 179-minute extended cut. So I saw the 162-minute international cut on 4K. I have not watched the extended cut yet, but I just saw the international cut and it looks phenomenal, folks. I mean, it looks so, so good. That Dolby Vision, I mean, it just extends the dynamic range beautifully. The detail is wonderful. I mean, you get nice darks in the picture, just a nice balance of the dark scenes and the lighter scenes. And I think you have the correct level of lighting in this picture. I say the correct level of lighting because when I compared this, and I just compared a few minutes of it, to this old Blu-ray that I have of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly that was released from, I believe, well, 20th Century Fox. Yeah, Fox. When I compare the Blu-ray picture just looks a little bit too bright and the white's a little bit kind of washed out, if you would. Whereas when you look at it on this new 4K release, it just looks a lot more balanced from a lighting standpoint. I mean, the scenes look the way they're supposed to look, the way that you would think they should look. An example would be near the beginning when Lee Van Cleef's character is introduced, and there's a part of the scene where he's in the dark and he turns out a light and it goes to black. On the Blu-ray, it just looks a little bit too bright before he turns out the light. Whereas on the 4K, it looks like it's the correct level of darkness in the scene, but you can still see him very well. It's just a better defined looking picture. And I'm describing it horribly, but what I'm trying to tell you is this looks amazing on 4K. I've done a very, very brief comparison to a little bit of this Blu-ray, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. From a detail standpoint, I think it's just a slight uptick from the Blu-ray, but it's definitely a little bit more detailed, a little bit sharper of an image. You get those close-ups, you can definitely see that you're getting a higher quality, deeper, richer picture. When you're looking at those faces, you're looking at the details within a scene. This is just a better, more polished looking image, especially with that Dolby Vision. It just brings out all the elements in the scene so beautifully, and I think it just looks absolutely phenomenal in 4K Ultra HD. Sounds really nice with that DTS HD 5.1 master audio, and I have no complaints at all about the video and the audio. It just looks as good as I could have imagined it would look. There are some scenes where you do get a little bit of softness just due to different levels of quality of certain sections that they were working with, but overall, this film is an absolute knockout on the 4K Ultra HD format. Looks amazing. But these Blu-rays from many years ago still hold up pretty well. I mean, I'm not going to lie. These Blu-rays still hold up quite well, but they just look a bit lighter and a little bit more washed out than these Blu-rays that have, I think, a more naturalistic looking appearance and just better resolved overall. I think it is the epitome of how these films should look based upon current day technology. So it looks phenomenal. And so picture, audio, A+ across the board for this release. Now let's talk a little bit about the supplements of this film. There are a ton of supplements on this film, including 2 audio commentaries. You get a number of new supplements in this release, including a new visual essay by musician and disc collector Lovely John. You have archival featurettes that are featured in here. So you get all the archival features from here on this edition here. And you also get some new interviews and a new visual essay. You also get in this release, which I will open up here. You'll see here, this is the slip. This is the back of the slip. And check out on the box here, this beautiful art there. So I'm gonna do a little bit of an unboxing here. There, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm gonna pull out the contents. And in the contents, you have this wonderful looking book that comes in at a lot of pages, nearly 60 pages, 58 pages on this wonderful book that you see here. And of course, you get some nice pictures in here that are wonderful to look at, and some great essays. You have Death by Numbers by Anton Biddle, Theaters of War, The Blue and Shades of Gray. So this film gets into the Civil War and the Union and the Confederacy. So you see both sides of that, or snippets of both sides of that. So that's a very interesting aspect of this film. The Economics of Survival, flash images, the eternally cool Western style, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Just some absolutely fantastic stuff. A picture of Eli Wallach there, the ugly. Just great stuff. Death by Numbers. And then toward the back here, you have production credits. And then about the presentation. So this is The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. Il Buono, Il Brutto, Il Cattivo has been exclusively restored by Arrow Films and is presented in its original aspect ratio of 2:35:1 in both international and extended cuts. The soundtrack is presented in restored English mono as well as remixed English 5.1 audio for both versions. The original 35mm 2-perf Technoscope camera negative was scanned and restored in 4K 16-bit resolution at l'Immagina Retrovata Bologna. The film was further restored in color graded in SDR, HDR10, and Dolby Vision at Silver Salt Restoration in London. So that is great. You have this poster here, wonderful poster with the theatrical art here, the theatrical poster and this newly commissioned art. So I love that. Absolutely love that. You have this wonderful disc case, and I always like to do the reversible art. You'll see that the art is reversible. So you have this art here that I have chosen to go with versus this art. But I always like to do the other art on the disc case than is on the actual box art. So I like to do that. So let me get this back in here. But on the inside, you'll see several discs, including the 4K disc. Phenomenal, that has the international cut. You have another 4K disc that has the extended cut. You have a disc here that has the extras. So you don't get the presentation on Blu-ray, but you get a Blu-ray that is region B that has the extras. And then you have this Blu-ray here that's also region B that has one of the best extras on here. And it is phenomenal. It is over an hour and a half. So it's a feature-length documentary called Sad Hill Unearthed. This is a phenomenal documentary. Film fans restoring the set of the climatic graveyard scene from the film. So it takes you back to Spain and that whole area that they did the shooting of this film, and just some of the things that the locals talked about during the shooting of the film from so many years ago, and how they were able to go back to that place and restore it back to the time when it was shot, and just some of the celebration around that. Of course, actor Eli Wallach passed away, I believe, around 2014, so they did a special recognition of him during that time. And it's just a phenomenal documentary that Arrow Video has chosen to include in this wonderful edition here as one of the best supplements that you will probably see all year on any home video release, and it has its own disc. So definitely check that out. But overall, I think you have a pretty good idea how I feel about this release. This is an absolute high recommendation from me. It is one of the best releases of the year by far, along with the other additions in the Dollars Trilogy. I think that the Dollars Trilogy release, the Sergio Leone Westerns, spaghetti Westerns from the 1960s starring Clint Eastwood, make up, I think, some of the finest releases on physical media for the entire year so far, and probably will most definitely be at the top of my list by the time the year is said and done. This is one of those cases where you just got to just take your hat off to Arrow Video, where they have just done just wonderful work, bringing us some of the greatest films that have ever been made, giving it to us on wonderful video presentations, wonderful editions. Are they perfect? No, nothing is. But are they spectacular? Absolutely. And they're highly recommended. This is a highly recommended release, especially on a 50% off sale. So on the next, well, actually, I can't really say that because this is an international release, so Barnes & Noble won't be carrying it. But if these are released in the US at some point, then they'll be part of a Barnes & Noble Arrow sale. But in the meantime, I would recommend going ahead and getting these when you can. From what I recently saw, I think they may have been sold out for this edition, but once they come back into availability, if they do, definitely pick up The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And even if you don't get the chunky box, you'll definitely want to at least get the future release of this film because you want to get that transfer. It looks beautiful on 4K Ultra HD. It sounds great. The features are phenomenal. And this is definitely one that you'll want to add to your library. But yeah, that's my review of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on 4K Ultra HD from our friends at Arrow Video. But let me know in the comments section below, what do you think of this film? Have you seen it? What is some of your favorite films from Sergio Leone? And of the 3 films in this series, the Dollars Trilogy, which one is your favorite? I did a poll on my community post on YouTube recently, and with just under 200 votes, it looks like about 3/4 of you, or 75% of you, are going for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. About 20% of you are voting for a few dollars more, and then the remainder say A Fistful of Dollars. For me personally, my favorite of the trilogy, by a hair, I think is For a Few Dollars More. I just had more fun watching this. I love this movie. I love all of them. I love all these films. But if I had to pick, I'd say For a Few Dollars More. I just had a little bit more fun watching it than watching The Good and Bad and the Ugly. I had a good time with The Good and Bad and the Ugly. Great time. But For a Few Dollars More just barely edges it out. And of course, A Fistful of Dollars is a ton of fun. I love it as well. But I give the edge to For a Few Dollars More. So I'm joining the 20%. But let me know in the comment section below where you fall in that question. What is your favorite of this trilogy? And definitely look forward to hearing your thoughts on this review and hearing what is your favorite. But I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to this channel if you like Criterion Collection, Arrow Video, Kino Lorber, and all things cinema coverage. Definitely let me know in the comments section below your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.